So our PechaKucha presentation topic is why teachers should not be held accountable for the standardized test scores of the students by Chandler Williams and Tamara Harvey. In 1845, Horace Mann had the idea that children should prove their knowledge through written tests instead of oral exams in Boston public schools. Mann's goal was to find and replicate the best teaching methods for education. In the 1960s, the federal government started pushing a new achievement test designed to evaluate instructional methods in schools. A lot of weight was placed on tests during the decades, as the Cold War and the globalization of the economy put a spotlight on schools for a production of skilled workers. In the 1700s, education was not considered a professional field of study. In the early towns in the United States, there were power structures like local government and clergy that hired teachers to make judgments about their teaching. Teachers were considered servants of the community. Teacher evaluations were traditionally relied heavy on classroom observations conducted by principals or other school administrators, sometimes with checklists or rubrics. A lot of the time they would sample the kids' work and teachers' records and lesson plans. Testing promised a way to identify kids who might go on to great things while avoiding wasting resources on slow children, quote unquote. This went along with the growth of academic tracking set for students on the career path deemed appropriate for them. The SATs began in the 1920s. Teachers being evaluated by test scores caused them to teach the test, and this also narrowed the curriculum and brought a rise of cheating. Every child can learn, but every child learns at a different rate. And some children have advantages such as better staff, and others have some disabilities that may interfere with their learning and capability. Students' test scores are influenced by far more than just their teacher. There are a lot of different factors such as class size, curriculum materials, and the community. No single teacher accounts for all of the students' learning. Prior teachers have lasting effects on students. Teachers shouldn't be held accountable for the test scores of students because test scores are not the only way to determine whether children are learning. Another reason would be that you can't always count on a child to go home and study. That's on them, not on the teacher, because you can't make the child study. According to Bloomberg, 1985 notes that at this time, supervision began to focus on improving the instruction of the classroom, not evaluating the teacher based off of test scores. Also, teacher ratings largely reflect on whom a teacher teaches, not how well they teach. Teacher evaluations narrow instruction to what is on the test and less attention to deeper learning, discussing different ways of doing the same problem, being more creative in the classroom. Slide is just a statistic of lower income community standardized test scores versus higher income community test scores and where they are on the scale based off of how they live, because income has a huge impact on a child's learning because sometimes they have more to deal with than just homework. This slide shows VAM scores, which is value added modeling scores. VAM scores are unfair in lower income communities, and in higher income community homes, high test scores go with higher income communities because they don't have to deal with the issues that a lower income student might have to deal with in a lower income community. More than 80 research studies have concluded using VAM scores to fire teachers as unfair and unreliable. Other factors that strongly link to achievement on state tests include parent education levels, single parents, families living in poverty, and families who speak different languages at home sometimes don't want their children to speak English in the house. They want them to speak their native language.
High-stake testing may cause the teachers to resent the students who can't score well, and that's so profoundly to the determinant of the student most in need. School give less attention to teaching cooperation, communication, creativity, problem solving, and other essential skills. More student loses access to untested subjects such as history, science, art, music, second language, and physical education. Tying teacher evaluations to rewards and sanctions is likely to lead to inaccurate personnel decisions and to demoralize teachers, causing talented teachers to avoid high-need students in school or to leave the school. Discourage teachers from wanting to work in schools with the neediest students.